Genital. Sexual intercourse is one that involves all the being. The other is not just a body that is before me. The other is a being, which has the dimension of sexual, physical, genital. But it only makes sense if it is plenified with the sexual meaning of the totality. It's someone who is being loved, is someone who is loving. But that does not always happen. Cynthia. But wait, ask this disconcerting question to her. Wait, is your life project now to be object? Born to be an object? Are you willing to live this time of life as the object of the other? Don't you think you deserve to be happy? Don't you think you deserve to break this chain of destruction that the other is imposing there? Bringing a number of bad, harmful things. Wake up the other for it. You've heard me always here. I don't miss the opportunity. Every time I have the opportunity to speak against socialized and non-socialized addictions. How many young people are losing their lives today because they are no longer able to say no to crack, cocaine, marijuana? Kill yourself, my people. Steal their own family. Why? Because they lost their own love. When we lose the self-love, we are capable of any kind of prostitution. And we prostitute ourselves in many ways, not only in the body. No, we prostitute ourselves in the mind. We prostitute ourselves into character. When I get along with liars to be able to have some benefit. When I start to receive abominable situations in my life, and I start to make a pact with all this, I'm prostituting myself. We need to be aware all the time that we are not born for such petty projects. We were born for much more. God's project in our lives, in our history, is for much more. We cannot level underneath. God dreamed for me and for you much noblest situations. I don't want to waste the hours I have with petty shops. I will not waste my communication time with gossip or responding to aggression. No. I don't want to give time. I don't want to give my time. I don't want to waste my time on what I know will not build. Or build what is communicating with me the option for life she spends all the time. Jesus said very wisely to his friends, referring to the arrival of the kingdom, eschatology, around, watch, and pray. This Christian posture. I need to watch all my choices all the time. I need to watch all the time what is happening to me. And pray about it. Reflect. Vigio. And reflect. And if necessary, I mute. I change focus. Why? It does not give. You cannot waste time. You do not have the right to unhappy the project God has for you, which is wonderful. Don't think God thought small about you. God thought very great with you, and everything he expects from you is there. Inside you. You just need to flourish. Just need to bear fruit. Only those who have proved the pain, who suffered bitterness, saw the cross and life in real tones, who rightly sought, but in the wrong one was lost. Had to know how to start. How long do we have to be who we are? We won't be wasting time with not being or realizing the other's dream. Because he imagined me like this and like that. No? Life is urgent, and we need to live with great disposition the opportunity to be today. Here. Right now. Many times we don't change the attitude. It's because we don't change the way of thinking. It is interesting how much it is really true when I have difficulty living with someone. If you don't change the way I interpret the other, it won't change my way of treating it. I bump into it all the time, my people. You know very well, accompany me. You know how public. My life exposes me all the time. And I need to have a lot of security in being so I can do what I do. And from time to time, bumps into my life, through a letter, through an email. It's natural. But the moment I am not interpreted the way I need to be, I have every right to set that limit. And often people approach us with such a greedy desire to be our administrators, right? Why? You are playing you wrong. Many weddings go wrong because of this. Because the husband interprets the woman as a good of consumption, does not interpret it as a human being who has wills, who has wishes, which has dreams. So the attitude often that curters, which will assault, will only be modified the moment the husband looks at his wife and interpreting her in a new way. There is freedom. And in freedom, we can be brothers, we can be friends, we can be happy, because no one is prevented from being. At many times in your life, you were unhappy because someone denied what you were. It didn't give you the opportunity to be who you were. Then, my friend, is a disaster. When we are not interpreted in a right way, when the eye looks at us the same way it looks at a wall, or a picture on the wall, or it looks at us as if it were a decoration object in his life, it runs the risk of being objectified. Lost its identity, ceased to be. He entered the dimension of doing in the most cruel way a human being can enter. There is no other way. I don't know. I can't be holy if I don't touch my human issues, if I don't improve them and modify these structures. Through a word, you suddenly discover that you are living the condition of object, and that in the condition of object, no happiness may be possible to human life, and that we have no right to objectify anyone or accept the object of the other. It is life, and it's so beautiful when we find out with each other. Wow. Sorry. I'm objectifying you. I'm not leaving their free being. I am not allowing you to be you. And love is born of this ability to respect these limits, and to understand that the other is in the process of transformation. Not what I want, but in what God wants for him. For that we love each other, right? When I want you well, I am providing you to be who you are, and at the same time, helping to remove the excesses that harm your being. Living identity is us somehow, to have a reference of who we are, and from knowing who we are, find out what we should do. There's always a being that precedes what it does. This is identity. Just like the doctor. He is a man, has a story, and makes medicine an exercise of being. Is not true? But before he was the doctor, he is that boy who was educated in the countryside, or it was that boy who grew up in the capital, son of so, and so, son of Sicrano, the brother of Tal. That one, there is a being that was built. There is an identity that it does not lose. Although medicine takes you to conquer many places in the world, it will always have a root in being Gian. He is, and that is what I identify. In fact, when we enter the office of a doctor, a lawyer, a professional, what will attract him is not just what he does with his profession. Not so much so that he knows. It is not how much he knows of law or medicine, but it is what he is as a person. Because what makes the difference the moment he makes. You know how to do many things, but you also know from this reflection that what you do is totally touched by what you are. I read a very beautiful phrase this week of an author who now I don't remember the name, thus saying, "The mirror shows us the face and art shows us the soul." Every time we are facing a work of art, somehow our soul reveals itself, because it causes our sensitivity, causes what we are. And you know that I keep thinking that in life, we're very lacking in situations that provoke our being. Because sometimes we do so much, we work so much, we fall into a life of so many activities that we risk living without knowing what we are. Because practical life often encourages our doing and not our being. And is that why I need to have my moments of cultivating who I am? And that is why our human maturity depends on these visits we do when it is. Because it is in the being that we change what it does. It's no use you want to modify your action if you have not changed the root that causes this action. It is much deeper. It is no use that you try to change a concrete and practical attitude. If you do not change their reason for the attitude that is in being, being is the house of all reason. Love is born in being. That's why what we do, our love gestures, they are directly linked to our being that loves. This is why the heart, when he is used to loving, when being always projects to solidarity, for love to fraternity, he will be very easy to do good. The gesture I make, it can be beautiful, maybe even kind. Why? Because a connection is often missing between my heart and my gesture. It is here, in my thinking, in my brain activity, in my intellectual motives. It is here, where my heart beats, where all my feelings are processed, where my sensations also exist and help me to be who I am. That the first dimension of Christianity forms. It is Christian formatting. We could use a modern term, wouldn't it? When you format your computer, what do? You transform it, you remove it, you clean everything that was there, and you project it for a new time. That's what baptism does to us. He removes us from an ancient condition and formats to a new life. So, from my baptism, I am dipped in this new way of being of Jesus. And because I am a Christian, my attitudes will be born naturally. Christian. Naturalite is a difficult word because our crystal gesture is not always natural, but it is because the conversion of being is lacking. It is natural that I want good. It is natural that I do not sow discord. It is natural that I know how to control my vanities. It is natural that I can control my pride. It is natural that I do not want to lie. Because the being is connected in Jesus and knows very well that living the dynamics of Jesus is precisely to deny all this. It is not wanting it as part. When we look at Jesus, we find out who we should be, how we should think. I have spoken here so many times that the Apostle Paul understood, because Paul was a very cultured man, and in fact, all Christian theology bumps all the time in the Pauline concepts, that he gave somehow this intellectual coding for simple thought of Jesus. Then what does he say? That we need first transform our mindset. Have you heard me about it? Methane is the change of mindset. If it rotates to the right, we will rotate to the left. But I would like to summarize all this in this sentence, or perhaps in a nutshell. You are a sacred territory. To say that you are a child of heaven, even if you have already missed a lot in life, even if you have already failed a lot, it doesn't matter. Today is the day to remember that you are a holy territory. And by recognizing that it is a holy territory, you have the right to undo all the irregular camps that may have happened in your life. People who arrived, structures, mentalities, things that have suddenly taken over you and who turned into an object in a good. If you want to know if you live any form of kidnapping of subjectivity, just answer it to yourself. Does anyone ask you for something that is harmful to you? And are you able to do just to be able to satisfy the other? Be careful, because we often think this is love, and it is not. The donation to the other never, but will never even ask you to self-destruct. You can sacrifice yourself, but sacrifice is not synonymous with destruction. Sacrifice does not destroy us. Sacrifice makes us nobler. For example, the other comes and speaks like this. You will smoke this weed to prove that you love me. You will make this sacrifice for me. No, this is not a sacrifice. Sacrifice is that you remove a reality from a common context, and you give it a sacred meaning. So I will make the sacrifice of spending the awake night awake with a sick person. Why? Because I love this person, because this person has a meaning for me. So, I will sacrifice my health there that night, and I will give my time of this common attitude. You see, a sleepless night is something common, But the sacrifice is me. I take this sleepless night and give to her a sacred meaning. I made her a sacrifice. What was common? Staying without sleep. I gave a noble meaning. I sacrificed, became sacred. Now when I find out that I am doing things, entering certain situations, destroying me because of someone else, so I risk having a disordered bond with it. That needs to be reflected all the time, my people. The kidnapping starts slowly. See? No one takes us at once. We start to be taken slowly. The invader is elegant. The kidnapper of affections, he is elegant. Then you are already under command. Human relationships that can be within marriage, in friendship, work relations, where you are destroying yourself because of the other, and you are no longer able to say no. You already assume this destruction as a life project. Then you need help. This is very present in the precocitors. Why? Because the teenager is not often prepared for love. Sometimes there are so many conflicts there and still have to manage a relationship for two. This is a danger. Many young women are kidnapped from the point of view of subjectivity by arriving adults who begin to take possession of that world without much protection. The teenager affectionately is inexperienced. So these passions of adolescence are so dangerous because the person gets blind. It gets blind. So be careful. Every time you find that you are living a relationship that is stealing you, set the boundaries. I always like to say that the other will treat us the way we authorize. Every time we identify that there is an exaggeration of the other, set your limit. This territory here is mine. This territory here is sacred. It will only come in if I take the sandal out of my feet and recognize that I am not you, that I am not your extension, that I do not have an obligation to be you again, that I have no obligation to live to satisfy your desires, that I don't have to be your object. We have already spoken here so many times about object relations. What are object relations? They are those in which one part identifies the other as the object of their satisfaction. This is highly destructive and very common. Very common when the other is not able to recognize that you are a human being. When he looks at you just like a machine. Sex does that a lot. It is impressive how sex can make the other an object. It's because in sexuality, people exercise. They need to live a healthy sexuality. They need to exercise in 2 dimensions. Because sex is not just the body. A sexual intercourse is much more than the meeting of 2 bodies. The meeting of 2 bodies. It's been a pleasure having you with us on Path of Faith. We value your feedback, so please share your thoughts in the comments, give us a thumbs up, share this video with others, and hit the subscribe button to stay connected with us.